Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Memorial Day and is soon coming to a close. We're approaching a quarter past the hour of 9 Eastern Time on this Monday evening, and I'm of course with FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey, and my colleague Joe Rayo, FiOS 1 News Hudson Valley, will be moving in momentarily. I am going to get his chair here. So the man should have his chair. There we go. So he'll be coming in a second. We're going to talk about subtropical storm Alberto, which is now inland over the Florida Panhandle, about to move into southern Alabama and gradually weakening, but still has a pretty impressive moisture signature on the radar. Actually increased quite a bit as we moved in through the evening hours tonight in terms of what we're seeing as far as downpours and thunderstorms are concerned, and I've got that on the radar, the Southeast Regional Radar, right to the bottom, and then over to the left I have the surface map, and Joe and I will go over that in just a second, but why don't we start off with the radar, and I will acknowledge everybody in a second. I can't have that map and see you guys at the same time, but I will, I promise. And here it is. The core is inland now. The heavy rains that are moving through northwestern Florida now headed up into the southern half of Alabama, and you can see up there to the north, up in northern Georgia, there's a rather impressive line of downpours and thunderstorms that is rotating counterclockwise around the circulation. There's spiral bands there, and there's some more heavy rains throughout parts of southern Georgia. There are a couple of weaker bands that are off the Florida coast that are moving through along near and north of Tampa, St. Petersburg, and then heading northwest from there. But much of the rain today was outside of Florida, other than a few scattered downpours. And they may get a bit more that'll develop during Tuesday over parts of southeast Florida, I think. But the main emphasis for the rainfall now will be across the southern states and the southeast, and back up into the Tennessee Valley and the lower Ohio Valley as we move through the next couple of days. Now there are we've got some various watches up, just want to point out, and I'll address our local weather, of course, too. I just want to just put this all out there. We have flood watches up for most of North Carolina and parts of northeastern South Carolina, but there's sort of a sliver in the middle where we don't have flood watches up, but then we do have them in western North Carolina, western Virginia, through Tennessee, parts of Kentucky, Alabama, and Georgia. And
sorry to have the door slammed.
That's all right. And there's a bit of a severe weather outbreak tonight in the western plains and in the central Rockies. So there's a large area where we have severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings up, and there have been a few tornado warnings. Severe thunderstorm and tornado watches. There have been some tornado warnings and some flash flood warnings and severe thunderstorm warnings that have been issued there. So Mr. Rayo has now joined us on this Memorial Day. I got the surface map here, Joe, with the radar laid over it as we look at subtropical storm Alberto, which kind of briefly intensified last night when winds jumped up to about 65 miles an hour, and then it just sort of leveled off from there. This is, it's kind of hard when you only have a sample of maybe a handful of tropical systems in May, and trying to, kind of figure out what's going to happen. And the time of year certainly was just that alone argued against this becoming anything in terms of a minimal hurricane, which it didn't make. Right. And moderate tropical storm, I think, is about as strong as I would classify this.
Well, it's just pretty good considering the time of the year. And again, we mentioned more than a few times last week that the last time we had a landfalling hurricane in the month of May dates back to the mid-1860s, 1863, I believe. So The very fact that this thing made it up to 45 or 55 mile an hour winds, and apparently made landfall as projected over Laguna Beach in Florida in the last few hours. Now it's just going to drag across the mainland U.S., and all of that moisture will be wrung out, tropical moisture, and it looks like.
And you can see some of it there in northeastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, but it's not making any further northward progress there. It's the northern edge is going to come to a grinding halt tonight and just sit there for a while.
Well, for us, we needn't worry about any precipitation here until maybe Thursday. We have a weather front, a cold front that's coming on down, and is due to cross at least the Hudson Valley sometime around 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and then move on through the rest of our tri-state, metropolitan New York viewing area during the afternoon and early evening tomorrow night. Unfortunately, the HRRR model only goes out as far as 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Up until then, there's no precip anywhere in the tri-state metropolitan area. But then again, there is always that chance with that front that we may see a thunderstorm or a renegade shower pop up near and along it tomorrow late in the afternoon or early evening, especially for New Jersey.
Now, we do have an issue tonight. I moved the surface map up closer to us, and maybe I can get it to zoom here. Hang on one second. We'll try to get it to zoom in, if it will let me. And, one of the issues, we still have this really stubborn onshore flow, and it's problematic because, at least for the overnight, I think that's going to keep us in cloud cover, certainly for Long Island and New Jersey and maybe southern areas of the Hudson Valley and into Connecticut. Got these winds off the ocean, maybe a little bit of patchy fog, but it's not going to prevent us from warming up on Tuesday. I think we're going to see temperatures well up into the 80s and maybe even near 90 in some places away from the ocean anyway.
Right, and as far as the dew point temperatures, they're expected to be around 62, 63, 64. So you combine that with temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, and you're going to have a fairly uncomfortable afternoon tomorrow. In fact, on the Joe Rayo frizz factor, and people wonder, say, what is the frizz factor? It is a projection of ambient air temperature and dew point temperature for the upcoming day.
Right.
And
it is to reflect that which is the most important thing in life, and that's hair. But go on.
But actually, we actually, when I say we, it was myself and Todd Gross back in the late 70s. My goodness, the Stone Ages, when we were on WPLJ radio. We introduced this. We originally called it the Discomfort Index, and Jim Kerr, who was a very popular disc jockey there, and later on I think moved on to another station, but at the time he was the morning man at PLJ, and Shelley Sunstein, who was the newscaster with Jim, they said, well, why don't we call this the frizz factor for, as you just mentioned, the effect on the hair.
Right.
You get frizzies or whatever. So that's what we did. It's a 0 to 10 scale. If it's 5 or anything lower than 5, no problem. It's a very comfortable day coming up. But if you get up to, let's say, a 6, then you start getting uncomfortable. 8 is just downright flat-out muggy, and you don't even want to be around when there's a 10. And we have been in the past 10 frizz days reaching all the way up to 10 at the top of the scale.
Right.
And that's for kind of like a 90-plus degree day with dew points in the 70s, and the wallpaper begins to peel off the wall. It's that kind of a thing.
Yes. I got the 7-day rainfall amounts because we've got all this tropical moisture that's coming in with the remnants of Alberto, and it's going to take a while for that to get up here. I don't think we're going to see anything here through Wednesday, and it might not be till later Thursday that some of that moisture comes up. But in areas to the south of us, which are going to get into this a lot sooner, and some areas already have, this is WPC's 7-day rainfall forecast, and it actually, so this takes us through next Monday.
Right.
And I mean, it does eventually get us into maybe 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches, but most of that is going to be spread out late this week and into next weekend. But you can see that to the south there are some rather substantial rainfall amounts, and there's likely to be some flooding. and there's going to be more rain across Virginia and Maryland, more significant rain as we go through the week. And of course, we saw what happened with the flooding in Maryland in Ellicott City.
I saw that yesterday, and I was just shaking my head because all through the day yesterday, you saw on the internet, warnings for the impending arrival of Alberto along the Gulf Coast. And meanwhile, far to the north, like 800 or 1,000 miles to the north, up in Maryland, right
had a
outside
line
the
of thunderstorms that produced conditions
6
far
inches
worse.
6 inches in just 2 or 3 hours.
More in some places.
It's incredible. It's sometimes you have tunnel vision. You start, concentrating on one part of the country, but meanwhile, someplace else gets battered or hit, and that's what happens sometimes in the summertime. You get what we call precipitable water values. That is the potential of getting very high levels of rain, but not necessarily you get it because there isn't a catalyst or a triggering mechanism to literally squeeze all that moisture out. Well, yesterday it just so happened that the areas around Baltimore, Endicott City, did get more than a half a foot of rain.
It was pretty amazing.
And supposedly they had something similar to that last summer, and the people who live there are probably saying, "So why are we getting targeted all the time?"
Yeah, I think it was 16. It was two summers ago, Joe. It was 16.
Wow.
If memory serves. Okay, I'm trying to
memory
get.
Is better than I sometimes.
It has its moments. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring up the models. I'm trying to do it tonight a bit differently, and of course, this computer is deciding not to cooperate very well. Let's see. Okay, now I think I might be able to get this. So just be patient, folks. There you go. Okay, good. So I can look at it this way. So give me 1 second to set this up. One of the things, Joe, I noticed going into the next week or so, we have, believe it or not, a blocking signature that has developed, and the NAO is going to go, for this time of year anyway, going to go rather strongly negative, and that's going to mean that while we may have the occasional day where temperatures are going to be warm, tomorrow being one of them, a lot of times we're going to be dealing with winds off the ocean, and that's going to make for some problems in terms of cloud cover and also in terms of moisture.
It's always amazing when you see the NAO go negative during the warmer months. And of course, probably the most famous case in the last 10 years was a very strong negative NAO in October of 2012, which helped to move Sandy, Hurricane Sandy, not up along the eastern seaboard as most storms tend to do at that time of the year, but rather curve it right into the coastline of New Jersey because it just couldn't progress any farther north because of the big block.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the maps the other way because we're just kind of having some minor issues here. I can't seem to get. It's not like I have a lot of things open on this computer. I don't. I have a minimal amount, and it's not letting me do what I need to do.
It's technology, Joe. Technology once again.
Of course.
Now it's turning white.
Not responding.
And the buffer wheel is round and round and round and round.
Oh, God.
I'm sure we've all had this. I've certainly had my fair share of it. Sometimes I threaten it. Sometimes I go to Control-Alt-Delete and threaten to just...
Well, if I do that, I'm going to knock everybody off the air.
Yeah, well...
I mean, do you really want me to do that?
What do you want to do? Well...
All right, you know what? I'm going to take this off.
Well, how about we just pick the darn thing up and throw it out the door? Get that annoyed about it.
I'm trying to get this thing to work. Finally! Glory, hallelujah. There's still, it's loading at least, so here's a plus. Okay, so we got the GFS up, so we can take a look at this. I'll have to leave it on the wide view, and actually it's probably better that I do. But you've got Alberto there, and up to the north over Canada, we've got a fairly strong high that's coming down over James Bay and eventually makes its way into New England. So after tomorrow, the onshore flow comes back in, but it still takes another day or so for this moisture from the south to come up, and that high is going to at least keep it at bay until maybe late Thursday or into Friday. And I think the heaviest rain winds up staying to the west.
Yeah.
But there's still, there's still going to be stuff around for us to deal with going into the rest of the week. And then notice, Joe, on the weekend, next weekend, another even bigger high. This is a really strong high that builds up in eastern Canada, that builds southward, and it puts us back into an onshore flow later in the weekend and into next week. I mean, this is at least signaling that the beginning of June is going to start off with cooler than average temperatures for a week to 10 days.
I really would like to see these highs of maybe about 500 miles further to the south so that we can reap the benefits of them in terms of dry air, and instead of that onshore flow, more of a northwesterly flow. But they keep shearing off to the north. Then all we get out of these are the northeast and easterly onshore flows, which is it's a cool flow, but it's a relatively moist flow, and you don't see all that much
in the way of sunshine. Sometimes, and this is going to happen on Wednesday, sometimes you can get enough dry air from northern New England to seep southward,
right,
and push the low cloud line down into, say, southern New Jersey, or even down into Delaware, and we break out. We may start with clouds early in the day, and we break out into sunshine. In fact, that's one of these instances where it works in reverse for Long Island, where Long Island actually breaks out into sunshine first, even though it still has the northeast wind, but the cloud shield moves south, so it'll be overcast in all the inland areas, and it winds up being partly sunny for the coast.
In fact, that kind of happened around midday today. It looked like, from the visible satellite view, that the cloud line was somewhere around Selden or Terryville. And if you went further to the west, you ran into a lot of cloud cover. But from that point on east, folks in the Twin Forks, the Hamptons, they probably had bright and sunny weather this afternoon.
They did. Although they are, they also had to deal with the ocean wind, and that kept temperatures a lot cooler. Just want to show everybody what I'm talking about with respect to the blocking high. But if you look, I actually have rolled this ahead, but you can see there's actually a big ridge that's building westward, across from Iceland and into Greenland, and this is for 8 days from now. But we can go back to today and show you how we get there. Actually, there is a bit of an upper high that's to the east of Greenland at this point, but over time that is going to make its way westward. It starts pushing in. You can see it here, and as a result, that is going to create cooler than average temperatures here because of the fact that we're going to have days. We could eventually have days of onshore flow, and then every once in a while it will be separated by a warm day with some showers and some potential thunderstorms.
Right.
It's an odd pattern, considering the fact that I think we've gotten used to over the last number of years where we just kind of flip the switch into summer early. Although I think if we go look back, you'll find that is not necessarily the case. This is not that really unusual for this time of year to still have kind of a blocky signature to develop, and you wind up with this marine influence.
Right. And I'd say for Friday, we're talking about that would be probably the best chance this week of seeing wet weather from the moisture induced by Alberto. And it seems to me that we may see enough of a climb in the dew point temperatures and the moisture coming in that we might actually get some convection on Friday, maybe some thunderstorm activity, whereas if we get anything on Thursday, we'll just get the cool overrunning type of airflow, maybe some light rain or drizzle. But on Friday we may have, maybe, I won't say explosive, but more of a convective run of warmer temperatures, higher dew points, maybe some thunder and lightning, and then we start pushing going the other way again for the weekend with again that steadier type of precipitation and cooler temperatures for Saturday, and then more wet weather into Sunday. But I would say right now that when we get to Thursday on into the weekend, you better know where the umbrella is going to be, because I think more often than not a lot of us are going to be using that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at who's on board tonight. Kitty Smile, Teddy Kane, John Nichol, Weatherman Haas, David Schwartz, Leon Probitsky, Rocco Fridella is on, Vince Robinson, Barbara Bender, Don Trainer, Bob Hutchinson, Robert Gibbons. Hi to everybody that's out there this morning, and I thank you, Mark Carroll. The Memorial Day weekend was a busy one for me. I had Saturday off, and I did some fishing, and it was good fishing. There we go. Make sure I get us on the screen.
Jerry DiPiero wants to know about tomorrow in Venice, Florida.
I'm thinking there's still going to be the chance for some downpours popping up because you're going to have that broad circulation that's kind of enveloped Alberto. Even though the main rains from that are going to be well to the north of you, don't be surprised if there's some downpours that develop and get swept northward up in that flow.
Yeah.
And why aren't you taking me with you? We don't have any other tropical systems in the cards right now, so that at least this was maybe a teaser. But by the way, just to point out, and I forgot what year it was, but I think it was back sometime in maybe it was in the 70s. I got to go back and look. There was one year where we had by the early part of July, we had 5 tropical systems. We had run to the A, B, C, D, and E.
Right.
And then, all of a sudden, the rest of the season shut down.
Yeah.
On the other hand, what season was it that we ran through the alphabet and then went to the Greek alphabet?
I think it was 2005.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that year, if I remember correctly, we had a large number of early storms, and it just kept on going.
Right.
So we could see either side, or maybe something will split in between. Just because we've have something now, we could wind up with nothing for the next 2 months until we get to August. So
it has been
it's hard to say.
It has been known to happen. Again, the high season for tropical activity around here along the East Coast would be from late August to the middle part of October. So it would not be surprising if we went into a spell of quiet weather as we moved into June, July. Well, you mentioned about the blocking, though. All of a sudden, a light bulb went over my head, and I'm thinking about 1972, June of 1972, Hurricane Agnes. Remember Agnes?
Yeah, oh sure.
Agnes kind of came in and kind of got stuck over the Northeast, and there were parts of Pennsylvania that were almost
20 inches of rain. Yeah,
unbelievable.
And in a lot of places, those records all still stand. By the way.
Yeah.
June storms. Depending on the setup, you could get, because you still have this sort of springtime influence on the atmosphere. You haven't really gone into the superheating of the summer. You can get these really very wet systems where they're tropical or they're partially tropical, but then something comes down in the north and it influences it, makes it into some kind of hybrid, or it accentuates the rain even greater as the systems start to move further north. There are all kinds of possibilities that can happen with these sorts of things, but at least for now, everything looks pretty calm.
Yeah. And as a kid, Brian Fitzgerald, our chief meteorologist here at FiOS 1, he was showing the projection of where Alberta was going to go over the next 5 days, and the track basically takes it straight on up almost to over Chicago by later in the week.
Right, and then drops the remnant low southeastward to off our coastline,
right,
as a remnant low,
right.
But it's going to be kind of enveloped inside that developing onshore flow. So it's going to make for an interesting forecast challenge for later this week and the weekend in terms of how much rain we get and how much cloud cover we're going to have to deal with. But right now, it doesn't look like there's anything major here that we're talking about here as far as rainfall is concerned.
I'll make the horns.
Yes, please. All right, so you're going to be off the next couple of days, and therefore we will have to wait until Thursday,
right,
for the next version of the Joe and Joe Show.
And Thursday is special here because on Thursday evening at 7:30 we have our FiOS 1 weather special, Summer of 18, where we're going to all take our shots and take a look at various aspects of the Summer of 18 and what it may or may not bring us. So.
Right, that's at 7:30 p.m. For FiOS 1 News Long Island, FiOS 1 News New Jersey, and FiOS 1 News Hudson Valley. And not only will Joe and I be there, but Brian will be there, Jeffrey will be there, Addison, Brittany, the whole gang.
The whole gang.
And we each have our own little subject thing we're doing.
We even had a round table where we all got together and
So by all means, mark that down on your calendar if you have FiOS. If not, you can probably find it on the FiOS website. It'll more than likely be streamed online at some point.
And I'm sure that we'll probably run it more than once. I know last year we ran it on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. We didn't do that this year.
Right, we moved it up a bit.
But I'm sure, from time to time, and parts of it will appear on what we have. We have something called the push-pause segments.
Right.
And sometimes that they're not. It's not the whole show, but one of the segments. Joe did one. I did one. Addison, we all did something, Brian, and it may show up as a push pause. So Jeffrey did one too.
Yes, he did. All right, so let's leave it at that, Joe. You take a couple of days off and enjoy yourself.
I enjoy myself.
Yes, and I'll be here tomorrow night and on Wednesday. Keep everybody up to date, and before that. It's at 10 o'clock, FiOS 1 News Long Island and FiOS 1 News New Jersey for me.
And FiOS 1 News Lower Hudson Valley for me. And again, kind of muggy tomorrow and much better and more comfortable on Wednesday. Incidentally, this next weather front is going to be coming through around early to mid-afternoon in the Hudson Valley. Do you think that maybe after a muggy start that we may actually be
might see the humidity go down? I wouldn't be surprised.
Later in the day tomorrow. That would be good, especially if you don't have an air conditioner.
As now you and I both don't have one. It's just very strange.
Yes.
But we'll save that story for another day.
Yes.
Have a great evening, folks. We will see you. You'll see the both of us on Thursday. You'll see me tomorrow. Good night.
Night.